Welcome to the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, a weekly broadcast sponsored by CVC Coaching, hosted each week by industry speaker, coach, author, and educator Jerry Eisenhower. Our presentations are produced to assist business owners and managers in turning their business dreams into their business realities. And now, here's your host, Jerry Eisenhower.
And I want to welcome you once again to the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network podcast. This is episode number 66. Our podcast is sponsored by the CVC Success Group and all the things that we provide for you to be more successful in the world of business. But the process of our podcast is not to promote our business. The process and the mission of our podcast is to give you helpful information where you can move farther ahead in your business. Our motto, our mission is providing the tools to turn your business dreams into your business realities. So let me tell you a little bit about today's guest and how did I get to know this gentleman. When I went through John Maxwell training and certification, when you go to certification, everybody has different expertise, and we have a lot of different styles of coaching, and everybody likes to be an executive coach, as Mike probably has seen also. So what I did in the John Maxwell Facebook page, I said, hey, I'm looking for people that work with blue-collar industries. I'm looking for somebody that coaches and speaks to these groups. And the guy's name that came up was a guy by the name of Mike Story. So I connected up with Mike, and to give you a little background, and Mike's going to tell you how he got into speaking and give you some of his background in this, but he's wrote 20 books at his time. His wife, just like my wife, also works in there. Her name is Rhea, and they do joint presentations, not just in America, but they do them in foreign countries and high demand. Some of his clients have included Chick-fil-A and a lot of large companies. So, Mike, are you out there with me ready to rock and roll today, brother?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jerry. I'm ready to go, man. Privileged to be here.
That's it. And there's nothing like two Southern boys because Mike lives in Atlanta, Georgia. So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, or suburbs. So what we got here is an ability for us to communicate. And when you get done with this, you may be saying y'all and other words that we speak properly in the South. So, Mike, let's start off with this. Let's tell them a little bit about your background prior to becoming a coach, speaker, and author.
All right, Mr. Jerry. My background is manufacturing. I started in 1988. First 10 years of my career basically was frontline, entry-level factory worker, machine operator. I was operating many different types of CNC lathes and mills and drills and gear shapers and saws and all kind of things like that. And then I kind of moved into the programming and drafting side of it and started programming those machines. Actually, it was about 70 machines, and I was also a setup person. Learned to set up about 70 machines before I started programming them. Then I got into the process engineering piece and started setting up new manufacturing sales and deciding how we were going to manufacture parts. I got into cost estimation engineering, process improvement. Then I moved into the lean world. I was working all my 20 years from 1988 to 2008. I worked in multi-billion-dollar global organizations basically, and so in 88, or let me back up. 2005, I had the opportunity. My company, again, it was about a $2 billion company with 70 plants around the world. Been in business since the early 1900s, but had never went down the lean path. So our company started going from basically batch and queue, traditional manufacturing, to lean, and the plant manager was looking for someone on his staff. Some of the staff managers, product manager, production manager, engineering manager, HR manager, anybody that reported to him directly to lead the lean charge and the transformation. And none of those guys or ladies wanted to take on the additional role. So he went down a level and come to me in the process and engineering group and asked me if I would do it. And I was excited to do it. So I held my hand up, volunteered, and I didn't get a raise, but I got a lot of experience. So during those 3 years from 2005 to 2008, I led the lean transformation in a manufacturing plant of about we had probably 200 people. And at the time, we were manufacturing mufflers for big rigs. And then also it later transitioned, those mufflers changed into, we had to start making actually big high dollar filters. What used to be a $70 muffler could potentially today be a $10,000 filter, due to government regulations and things like that. And so end of 2008, after 3 years, we had took that plant from minus 3% gross profit margin to plus 35% gross profit margin. We had freed up from basically 180,000 square foot of space that we were using down to 70,000 square foot of space. And we added 4 new departments, 50 new jobs, but we didn't have to hire a single person. So we had a lot of great results. 2008, I jumped into starting my own business. In the middle of the Great Recession, I showed everyone how smart I was, Jerry. I just quit. I said, I'm done with the corporate world. I'm going to start my own lean manufacturing consulting business. So I did that from 2008 to 2012, and then I got gung-ho about leadership and personal growth and all that sort of stuff. In 2012, I pulled the plug on all my consulting clients and started over from scratch, and today here we are.
I hear you, man. So, one of the things that impressed me as I've read up on you and read your books, which are very full of gold nuggets for people. How did lean implementation and lean and leadership, how did those things go together to make a successful blue-collar business model?
Yeah, leadership, most people who do lean, they're missing the leadership piece. That's why they struggle with buy-in. That's why they struggle to sustain the gain. And in 2008 is when I actually discovered leadership in the form of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And someone actually gave me a 1-hour audio, and that's what got me started on this journey in 2008. But after I listened to it, I realized I had worked in multi-billion-dollar global companies for 20 years, and not a single penny or a single minute was ever invested in me, teaching me the kind of stuff I was beginning to hear on that 7 Habits audio. So in 2008, I started reading every single day. I've been reading every day since, and I'll read every day the rest of my life, leadership books and personal growth. So the next time after I heard that audio, I took it to one of my Kaizen events where I would come in on a Monday and I'd get a team of 6 to 10 people. And by Friday, we've had to execute, an improvement on the shop floor. So the first time I had that opportunity, I took it in and said, hey, I want to use you guys as guinea pigs. I want y'all to just listen to this audio and see if it makes as much sense to you as it did me. And if you don't like it, I won't ever play it again. If you guys think everybody needs to hear this, I'm going to start, playing it every time I do a Kaizen event, which was every week. So I played it. I hit play on the laptop, stuck a CD in there, and hit play and just listened to it. We didn't talk about it. We sat around, listened to the thing play out of the speakers, and we got done. I said, what do you guys think? And they were really fired up. They said, everybody needs to hear this. So that's where I started implementing it. But then I started pausing it and talking about what I was learning from it and how I had applied it in my life. So you fast forward 4 years, and I had been reading for 4 years. And so I had made leadership development the foundation of my lean consulting business. And every time I would go in, I got a book that talks about how I did it. It's called Blue Collar Kaizen, Leading Lean and Lean Teams. It's not about process improvement. It's about how to lead teams of people really through process improvement or any kind of change, but the principles are all about leading teams. And one of the things I did was I started making kind of like the 80-20 rule. 20% of the week was spent on leadership development, which meant the first 4 hours on Monday and then 1 hour Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning. And that really engaged the mindset and get people bought into me and get rid of the political junk and get rid of the fact they didn't like the last consultant. They don't like change and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And, let me ask you this. I call it a magic moment. It could be a driving force, but there was a day in your life, and you said it a while ago, and when you decided to leave the corporate world and strike out on your own. Was this a realization that you woke up one morning with or had a dream about? What was that magic moment for you that said, I can do this?
And you're talking about, Jerry, when I left the corporate world in 2008 and started my own consulting business?
Correct. I mean, that's a scary
Okay.
thing. I mean, you had a set salary, I'm presuming, and all this good stuff, and all of a sudden, I'm going to strike out on my own because I've got a message that can help others. What was that magic moment for you, Mac?
Yeah, for me, and I write about it in my book, Defining Influence. Anyone really wants to know my story. There's a lot in there. I do a lot of teaching, but I got 3 chapters at the end of that book that really tells my story. But to answer for you and your guest in a condensed version here, basically once I got into lean in 2005 and started leading the transformation in my plant where I actually worked as an employee, I got gung-ho about that stuff. Up until that moment, I had basically done whatever the bosses asked me to do. I was the kind of guy that I would figure out how to do it and I'd make it happen. And I knew it would help me climb up the ladder, and the corporate ladder and the corporate pay scale both. And so I would do whatever I was asked to do. And I always did an outstanding job just because that was how I showed my values, to do a good job. So toward the end it actually was in April of 2008, a quality manager resigned, and I was the lean manager by that time, reporting directly to the plant manager. I was on his staff along with 7 or 8 other managers, and the quality manager resigned, and the plant manager asked me, and this plant manager, he's the best leader I ever reported to in those 20 years. And I loved him then. I still love him now. But he had talked to me about taking the quality manager job. And what they were trying to do was prepare me to become a plant manager. They didn't understand I didn't want to be a plant manager. I had found my passion for lean, and that's what I wanted to do. So the quality manager resigned. He called me up to his office and, to close the door kind of deal. And he said, Mac, quality manager just resigned, and I need you to be the lean manager and the quality manager. And I knew what that meant is I wouldn't be doing very much lean because quality, is a big deal. And we had a lot of quality issues and that needed to be fixed and addressed. And I said, it's kind of sarcastically, because I had already told him for months I didn't want to do it. And I said sarcastically, I said, sure, I'll be glad to do it. I said, I'll tell you this, I'll do it to the best of my ability, but I can't tell you how long I'm going to do it because I don't want to do it. I was straight up honest with him. And actually the next morning I come in, he come in he usually got there at 6. Normally I get there at 7 in the morning, but that morning I got there at 4 the very next morning. So when he got there, I was already there, and called my phone. He said, hey man, what you doing? You pinning your ears back so you can tackle this thing? I said, no sir, I'm cleaning out my desk. He said, what do you mean you clean out your desk? I said, I told you yesterday, I don't know how long I can do it. It looked like maybe about 12 hours was it. I'm resigning. I'm done. No notice, nothing. I'm going out the door. He's like, you got to come talk to me. I said, I'll stop by and see you. So I went up, talked to him. We walked around the plant. We was out in the grass fields. He had his arm on my shoulder trying to get me to stay. And he called up some other plant managers I had supported. And they told me how stupid I was. And my boss told me how stupid I was for, resigning in the middle of the Great Recession when everybody's losing their job. And at the time I was making about $80,000, and I never in my life thought I would make that much, if you really know my whole story of where I come from. But I was so passionate about lean, that's what I wanted to do, and nobody was going to change it anymore. But he talked me into giving him 30 days, and I did, because I did like him, still do, and wanted to help him transition. And I told him, you got a plan for me to leave, because I'm leaving. I'm staying 30 days, but that don't mean I'm staying longer. But what happened, Jerry, was during that 30 days, I got a little bit smarter, and I went and hired a career coach, a consultant, paid him actually $5,000. And I told him, as soon as I did it, I went and told him, I said, hey, I just paid $5,000 for a career consultant to help me transition. I said, so I may stay longer than 30 days, but I still can't tell you how long. But what you need to know is I just paid a lot of money to get out of here in a smarter way. So I stayed till August. And then I took my resignation in, handed it to him. He looked at the thing, wadded it up, big old ball, and threw it in the garbage. He said, man, I don't want this. I said, it's that time. And he said, just go home, think about it, and come back and see me in the morning. I said, I'll go home, think about it another night, but that's going to change, and the date on the paper is still going to be the same. So I went home. The next day I brought it in. I handed it to him. When he reached for it, I kind of snatched it back before he touched it. I was like, don't throw this one in the garbage, because I'm not bringing you another one. This is like the official version. And so that's how I resigned, and I was just passionate about lean. And so I was not going to let somebody else shape my destiny anymore, and I was going to take control of it. And I did. And within 9 months, all those people who told me I was stupid, I was earning about $120,000. And then about a year about within a year from the time I left, I was getting close to basically $300,000 a year. And then I got so passionate about leadership during those 4 years that at the end of 2012, I gave up my nearly $300,000 income and went to zero for the second time. And so my real passion is leading people. But at that time, I thought it was lean.
Got you covered. So listen, from reading your books, there's a lot of gold nuggets. And it appears to me that in your presentations, you've got a phenomenal and great approach to getting members of the team bought into the process. The word you said a while ago was sustain. And this is where a lot of people cannot sustain. So can you share some of the secret sauce that you share in your presentations to season that message where people buy in and sustain your processes?
Yep, I can, Jerry. And one of there's several principles, and if your listeners are looking to read this, dive in deeper. It could be some of the stuff I'm going to teach you right now is found in my book, Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines. And I wrote that book specifically to do exactly what you said, but I wrote it for the frontline entry-level blue-collar worker. And but I've had high level. I had a CEO of a 5,000-person company read that book last Friday, and then he called me on Saturday and wanted to talk to me and set up a meeting. We met at a local Starbucks up near my home for 2 hours on Monday, and then he ordered 200 of my blue-collar leadership and culture books and got fired up. Now he's, instead of just training 500 supervisors or frontline people, he was going to start at the top and go down. So it's a big deal. So the reason I'm saying that, not really to promote the book, but to tell you, I wrote this for entry-level blue-collar people. But the CEO of a 5,000 company read the book and he told me he got gold nuggets out of it. And then he also said he's taking it home and his daughter's going to have to read it. So I'm going to share with you some of the principles in there. And one of the things to get frontline people to buy in, first of all, they're usually not used to hearing this kind of stuff, just like I had never heard it until 2008. So one way to get them to buy in is I want them to know that they're not working for XYZ company. When I ask them who you working for, they usually say I work at XYZ. And I'll say I didn't ask you where you work. I said I want to know who you working for. And then they kind of catch on and they say, oh, I'm working for me. I say, absolutely. If you're getting paid and you accepting the money, you working for yourself so you can provide for yourself and your family. And the reason I want them to know that is because when they understand they're working for themselves, how they work matters more. If I think I'm just working for you, I may not do as good a job. But if I know I'm working for me, it kind of matters more. And I teach them the reason it matters is because everyone knows the best type of advertisement is word-of-mouth advertisement. And what I teach them in there is the business you want to grow and develop is your business. And what I'm meaning is the individual. The individual, somebody who's working in an organization, they are their business. They're walking in every day selling their product, which is themselves, their mental abilities, skills, experience, all that type stuff. So I want them to know how you do your job determines what everybody around you is saying. Every single person you interact with in the company, outside the company, they're advertising about your business. They're telling people what they think of you, and what they say matters. And so that's one of the key. Another key I tell them, and I love talking even to young people, high school kids, college students. I like to teach them this principle, and I'll tell them, don't ask for a raise, ask for more responsibility. And they kind of all look at me like, what? And I say, just trust me. And I teach them when you ask for a raise, you kind of like being more aggressive. But when you're asking for responsibility, you're setting yourself up to get many raises as you want. In that little blue collar leadership book, I talk about how I got the principles I share in there allowed me to be promoted 14 times in 20 years. And I didn't ask for a raise, just like I didn't ask for a raise when I took that lean. At the beginning, there was a lean coordinator and then became the lean manager job. I didn't ask for a raise, but I got about a 50% raise over those 3 years. And then I took that experience that I got because I didn't ask for a raise, and then I went and leveraged it and just climbed and climbed and climbed. So those are a couple of the points. I'm not going to get too deep into it because it takes me about 12 hours to teach what's in that book. I know we ain't got quite that long, do we, Jerry?
No, we don't, brother. But I will tell you what, I have read the Blue Collar Leadership book that Mike is talking about, In fact, earlier this week, I've recommended to every one of my clients that they get this. And underneath what Mac was telling you is leadership, because you've got to be a leader to lead your people, to get what we call buy-in. And this is a very difficult thing. And you've got to sustain your leadership when you get discouraged. So, Mac, I know that when you talk to managers, just like I do, and my clients, one of the number one challenges that everybody is facing in 2009 is the age of limited candidates that are out there. And so what's your advice to managers to use to ensure that they get the right people on the team? I mean, this is one of the key things that we teach on ourselves. That's why we press assessment, DISC assessment of people, checking their behaviors and really putting things together. So what would you tell a manager who's discouraged that there's nobody out there that wants a job? You've probably heard that, or you hear nobody wants to work anymore. We all hear these stories every single day. So what's your advice to that manager that is his thought?
Yeah, it's kind of some of that mirror talk. I call it looking in the mirror, and we've got to figure that out. We were just in Washington, D.C. just a couple of days ago, and we spoke to actually a group of business owners, entrepreneurs. Most of them were the owners of towing and recovery companies all across the USA. There were a few people who didn't own the company, but top managers. But this is a big deal, and the CEO I mentioned a minute ago that's going to be purchasing, or he already has, 200 copies of Blue Collar Leadership and Culture. That book, Jerry, I wrote that book specifically to talk to exactly what you just said. Anybody on this planet, especially the blue collar folks, that's who my stuff's really for, but it applies to everybody. Those people who say, we just can't find any good people. If anybody out there is saying that, I wrote this book for them. And it's really to generate buy-in to leadership development, because that's the key. And I just want to share with you, because you mentioned it, and then I'll talk a little bit deeper into your answer. But chapter 3 is titled The Impact of Culture. And what I say, and it's so critical for the leader to know, is those who work there will determine who wants to work there. And so how we grow and develop those on the inside is going to determine what those on the outside are seeing. So I kind of start that chapter off, and I really want to share this because it addresses exactly what you talked about. And I want the leader to look in the mirror, because Chick-fil-A was a client of ours, like you mentioned, and Jimmy Collins was Truett Cathy's third employee. He's been a personal friend and mentor of mine. I had him on my podcast recently, went over to his home and recorded 3 episodes. But I put a post the other day, and what's cool is Jimmy follows me, and that's just crazy. I can't believe that. That's where I'm at today, that he follows me and supports me and comments on my Facebook post and that sort of thing. But I said something about, those who can't find good people, and he replied back, and he said, Mac, there's not a shortage of good people. There's a shortage of good bosses. So I kind of want to share something here. So I start out that chapter. I say, listen to the voices of leaders who are losing the labor war. And what they're really losing is the culture battle. Their culture is losing out to their competition's culture. So these folks, these voices, I hear it all across the country, probably just like you do, Jerry. People say, we just can't find any good people, as if there aren't any good or great people. They say, due to the low employment rate, there just aren't any good people left, as if the only people who can be offered a job are those without a job. In today's labor market, they say those who want to work are already working, as if those who are working at one place can't decide to work at a different place. And then another voice is, when we do get good people, they won't stay, as if the problem is always with the good people and never their leaders. So what I want them to know, and what this book is about, because this book is to help people become the sought-after employer in their industry. Because what I say is, it's easier to compete when you're attracting great people instead of searching for good people. And Blue Collar Leadership and Culture is all about helping them understand, to become a sought-after employer, what that means is people who don't work there have a strong desire to work there. But that's kind of the end result. What you're really shooting for is to become an employer of choice. And how you become an employer of choice is those who work there already have a strong desire to continue working there. Because just like that principle I said earlier about you're in business for yourself as an individual, and word of mouth advertisement is so key. It's the same thing. A company who can't find good people is because of what the people inside the company are saying about the company when they're outside of the company, when they're at the Little League game or they hanging out with friends, and people say, what's it like to work there? Everybody's advertising for the organization all the time. And the critical piece, a lot of stuff I know you do, Jerry, and you help and support with, we got to develop the people. That's how you become a highly sought after company, is you got to grow and develop the people already in the company. So they're your best advertisers.
And you know, while you were talking, I pulled your book off of my bookshelf here that says Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for high performance teams. And this is a quote that you start chapter 3 with, and it's by Jim Blanchard. I think the most important and difficult thing is to create a culture in the organization where leadership is really important. It's important for people in the company to realize this is a growth-oriented company, and the biggest thing we have to grow here is you, because it's you who will make this company better by your own growth. So the book that he's referencing here is full of gold nuggets. I see here another place that you had done a presentation in Louisville, Kentucky. And someone come up to you and said, there isn't a magic pill, is there? I think we all hoped there was. And your answer was, no, sir, there isn't a magic pill or an easy button. This is how you build a high performance team, an exceptional culture that will attract, retain, and support them. There is no other way. So again, Mac, you're putting out such gold nuggets, as I call them. It's unreal. And like I said, this is what we do in the coaching industry, is we research and we learn from reading from others such as you have. So I've learned a lot from what your books are telling me that I can apply in my business. So let me ask you this question. You get a client, he calls you on the phone or he emails you, and he is just so shook up from failures. He may have he's had in business. How do you encourage and coach him to a higher level he's actually capable if he applies himself to? And you and I are both students of John Maxwell. We're both certified by John Maxwell, and that's one of the things that John Maxwell teaches is how you use failure as fuel for your successes. So what would you tell the guy that calls and he's at the end of his rope, he's ready to throw his hands up and just go get a job? What's your advice to that guy?
Well, my advice, if he thinks he's done, is first of all, I got to get him over that hump, because I had a client in Charlotte, North Carolina, owner of a cement pumping company. And I got done speaking, and he said, everything you said, he said, I got a quote I'd say around here and to everyone. I want to share it with you. And what he said was, we don't have to be sick to get better. And I did the research and found out Michael Josephson had actually written a book by that title, We Don't Have to Be Sick to Get Better. And I tell that person that because I'm about to talk to them about getting better. And they may, if they've had a big failure, they may be feeling like they're sick. But what I want them to know is whether you're having a failure or you're not having a failure, you don't have to be sick to get better. And what I want to, a lot of times what I'll talk to them about, the first thing I really want to talk about is, are their values? Because I want to go to the root cause of why they're struggling. Because if they don't change, if they don't go to the root cause of the issue, they're going to be struggling longer. And my job, I call it leadership truth. You've probably heard John mention it or write about it. I think I got it from John, but he basically says what I call leadership truth. He describes as, he says, kind of like a surgeon's scalpel. It might hurt, but it's meant to help. So what I want people to know, especially leaders, whatever's going on in their organization or in their personal life, it starts with their values. Unless somebody is willing to do the hard work, look in the mirror and change their values, nothing's really going to change. And that's what I was talking to those leaders about in D.C. Some of them were those folks. Some of them were struggling, Jerry. There were some tears shed in D.C. on Thursday when we were up there speaking. And one lady said, she come up and had tears in her eyes. She said, after sitting in your session, she said, we just lost the best team member we've ever had in our organization. We lost him. And she said, and she's the owner of the company. She says, today I know why we lost him. It's because of me. It's because of who I am. Another gentleman come up and showed me a text message on his phone, and he was kind of watery-eyed. He come up and he was real emotional. He said, He said, Mac, look at this. And he showed it to me, and it says, I'm sitting in a classroom with tears running down my face. I need to be a better father and a better boss. I said, who wrote that? He said, I wrote that just a minute ago. I said, who'd you send it to? He said, I sent it to my daughter. And I assume his daughter worked in his company. He was the owner. He said, before I come in here today, I was down in the dumps because of my business. He said, but after sitting in here, he said, you've given me hope. And what the hope that they get, because I talk truth. I don't talk a bunch of fluff, because I'm there to make a difference. And I want them to know wherever they are in life, it's their values. And the reason values are so important is our values determine our thoughts. What we value in life determines what we think about. What we think about determines what we do. What we do determines our results, and those results lead to our circumstances. So if someone wants to change their circumstances, they got to do the hard work of looking at their values. And for instance, a lot of leaders contact me and they want me to help them with culture change. And the first thing I want to talk about is, what does that mean to you? And then I have to tell them what it means to me. And what it means to me is, Mr. or Miss Leader, you've got to change your values, because your values created the culture and allowed that culture to thrive. So unless you're willing to do the hard work and say, well, what do I need to change? Nothing's really going to change. And so from a personal level, I've got a book for that too. It shares how I actually transformed myself. And it's called 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, How to Become Your Best Self. And it's a roadmap through 10 layers of really personal transformation, but it applies to anybody. It's full of principles. And I had to do it myself. And most people don't understand unless they hire me to talk about personal growth. They don't really get to hear a lot of my story. I sprinkle in a little bit, but I used to have a bad temper. I used to drink alcohol. I used to use profanity. I make the joke from the stage. If I said a one-word sentence, it had 2 words of profanity in it. That's the only way I could make it happen. And I don't judge other people, but those are things I had to do to get better, to be able to increase my influence with high impact people with high integrity and high character.
You know, you ever have that speech? You ever sit in a class or go to someone's address, keynote, or whatever? I will tell you about a magic moment I had, and it was in 1987, Mac, and I was at the National Chimney Sweep Guild Convention. It was in Louisville, Kentucky. And that year they hired a guy, and his name was Paul Rodillo. And Paul was a powerful speaker. I mean, he walked the room. This guy had a voice. He didn't need a lavalier mic. He had a voice that boomed out. And I mean, he caught your attention. And his point of view was, and what he presented was, would you work for you? Would you work for you? And this is something that has dealt with me. I feel like I learned a lot about public speaking watching Paul that day. And Paul's no longer with us because he was up in years at that point. But Paul talked about, just like you and I have, we grew up working in factories. I was in a print shop for years, worked the night shift and all those things, till I had a notion that I would become self-employed. And then in 2010 became this. But that's the message that you guys got to look at. You know, Mac just said it to the key. You got to look in the mirror. You really got to look in that mirror, because what you got to do is you got to decide that you have to change. I think that's a key message. And it's also the message he gave you a while ago is you got to fix it before you get sick. And Mike, I'll be honest with you. I used that yesterday with one of my clients who, I'll be honest with you, you know, everything's fat, happy, and sassy right now. The economy is booming, but you're not taking care of the small details. And when this economy gets sick again, which it will one day, it's not going to stay up here. History proves this, where you're going to have a problem. So listen to what he's telling you and what he's suggesting. So Mac, here's my last question for you. And this is, what is your closing thought? What gold nuggets can you give our audience to get them on the path to look at themselves, to take that look in the mirror, to fix it before they become sick, and sustain this growth so you can do what I call turn your business dreams into your business realities?
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little deep right here. I always tell people that leadership development equals character development, and personal development is the foundation for leadership development. So the one thing I like to ask people a lot of times, and it doesn't matter what level they're at, they can be business owner, they can be frontline entry-level person, or somewhere in between. But I always ask them, if you know how to do what you want to do, you're extremely good at it, you have the skills, the knowledge, and the ability, and you're not being allowed to do it, or society's not allowing you to do it. Maybe you're a business owner and you know what you want to do and you're trying to get out there and do it. If you actually know how to do it, regardless of where you're at, there's only one thing holding you back, and it's character. And the reason that is, we learned in Guatemala with John Maxwell that character is responsible for 87% of our results. Competency only responsible for 13%. And most people, when they want to get better in life, they focus on competency, get another degree, learn another skill. But competency is only going to take you so far. And it's your character is going to launch you like a rocket or going to limit you like an anchor. And a lot of people, they don't study character, so they don't understand. Sometimes people are offended when I'm speaking. I have to make sure to teach them what character really is, because for some people, character just means you're good and bad. And when they hear, I need to work on my character, they kind of get defensive and say, I'm a good person. It's not about being a good person or bad person when you truly know what character is. Character is how you do what you do and why you do what you do. That's what it is. And so if you have the knowledge, which is the competency, if you got that mastered, you got that slayed, there's only one thing holding you back. It's over there on that 87% side. In a lot of companies, I talk to leaders all across this country, Jerry, just like you do. And all I hear from a lot of leaders is it's all about the competency side, the people. I'll ask them, when you have to terminate someone, is it because of their character or their competency? It's always the character. Even if they try to say it's the competency, I can ask enough questions where they figure out it really was the character, because they wouldn't learn what they had to. They wouldn't pay the price or make the sacrifice to learn and develop themselves. Or they could have lied from the front end that they said they had a competency and they didn't. That's not a competency issue. That's a character issue. So I love Dr. Henry. I'll end on this, but I love Dr. Henry Cloud's definition of character. And he says, character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. And what that means, whatever you're trying to achieve, if that's the demand of reality, you want to grow your business, you want to get a promotion, you want to attract great people instead of searching for good people. If you can't meet the demands of reality, his definition is saying it's a character issue. And I agree with that 100%. Character is king, especially when it comes to culture. When it comes to the culture of your organization, character, the collective character of all the people, is what the culture actually is.
Mac, I'm going to tell you what, you got some phenomenal advice for people. So let's do this. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this, get a hold of Mac's books. If Mac's ever speaking somewhere, go see if you can get into that seminar. I've never met Mac face to face. We've talked, we followed each other. We both on the same course of building blue collar leadership, blue collar success stories, which has a wonderful way. So Mac, if they want to get your books, follow you, those type of things, how do they do that?
The best way to learn about me and what I do is go to bluecollarleadership.com. And actually, if you want to type in bluecollarleadership.com / and the word download. So bluecollarleadership.com/download. You actually can read right there or download a PDF of all 5 of my Blue Collar Leadership books. You can't download the whole book. You get the first 5 chapters and then some chapters of some other books. But my stuff's on Amazon. Most of my books, all of my Blue Collar books are ebook, paperback, and audio. And have the Blue Collar Leadership podcast. Also, I'll put that out once a week. Right now, I got like 137 or 138 episodes. And LinkedIn, just type in Mac's Story and find me on LinkedIn. And I call them leadership nuggets. I put out motivational, inspirational quotes and memes every day. I've got over probably close to 300 articles I have on LinkedIn. So I got tons of free stuff. People don't have to spend their money unless they want to. And I thank you, Jerry, for having me on your podcast. And I hope I can share it with my network and get you some new audience, and maybe the same happen for me. But either way, keep doing what you're doing, brother.
I got you, man. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you taking the time out of a busy schedule. And also, please pass along to Rhea. I'd love to have her as a guest on here too, from her perspective, because she's also a phenomenal speaker and author. And that's what I admire. Just like Cheryl and I work together in what we're doing, they're working together there. So, Mac, I appreciate you being here with us today. You've shared some excellent gold nuggets. Guys, go on Amazon right now. If you type in with Amazon, you'll get this book the next day, or you can get the Audible version or the ebook version. And what I love about Mac, just like myself, he's putting out stuff free every day. So you just got to hook up with him on social media and get those gold nuggets, guys. Like I said, get one of this book. I'm going to highly suggest that Blue Collar Leadership, get that one. Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, and there's 18 more books that Mac has put out. And this is what you got to know: leaders are readers. And this is one of the things. Well, I also admire you, Mac, because you're not trying to be John Maxwell. We've both been through John Maxwell training. I've been through Jeffrey Gitomer's certification. Cheryl's been through Zig Ziglar certification, but none of us are Zig Ziglar or Jeffrey Gitomer or John Maxwell. You are telling a story from Mac's story, and I congratulate you, sir, for what you're putting into this and how hard you've worked to help others. So I hope you'll plan on coming back and joining me again sometime. Does that work for you?
Absolutely, and I know Rhea will be glad to get on too. So all you got to do is get with me. You got her email, and she'll be happy to come on. But I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's a privilege to be here with you. And like you said, I've always said I don't want to be John Maxwell, Stephen Covey, any of those people. I want to be like them, but I want to do it my way. I want to be Mac's story. I ain't the kind of guy that rides the coattail. I like to wear the coat. I like to be me, do it my way. But what you said is important. Everybody learns from other people. I encourage people, don't just read my stuff, read all kind of stuff. That's why I put so many quotes in my books from other people to direct them to who some of these other people are. So outstanding, Jerry. You're doing a great thing, sir.
I appreciate it, Mac. And that will end this episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, sponsored every week by the CBC Success Group. Be sure and look us up. Look at our virtual training platform we have available to you, our hiring services where we're hiring people for companies now, putting them through the interview, the assessment process. Check out, we've got a great team of people here that's ready to go to work for you. So this will end this episode. And once again, thanks for joining me here on the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network.
Thanks for joining us here each week at the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network, sponsored by CVC Coaching, providing you the coaching and educational outreach services you need to move to your dream destination in business and in life.